Today is a beautiful day. Oh, everything is green and blue. So yeah, I quit my job at Amazon, and specifically that is AWS, Amazon Web Services. So I was a senior SDE, senior engineer. Internally, I was an L6 or an SD3, and I quit in January. I did make almost exactly $500,000 last year, and then I quit my job immediately. And although I was unhappy in that job, but that's not why I quit. The reason I quit was actually something a little more important to me, a little more special than that, is that there's actually a bit of a lesson I learned in life, and I've wanted for a long time to find a way to share that lesson with others. So it's actually September right now, September 2025, and I'm in Sherwood National Forest in England for no better reason than it just seemed kind of neat. So I'm here now, and I waited all these months to make this video because I wasn't sure how to tell the story, but I think I might have found a way. So here's the thing: is I'm gonna be dead in like 30 or 40 years or something like that. I'm 39 now, and statistically, right, I'm past the halfway mark. There's only so much you can leave behind in life, right? And the idea that life is short and I'm just a mortal being, that's never really bothered me that much. It sucks a little, but it's been a real inspiring factor to do a lot of cool things in life. But there's one time in my life in particular where somebody shared a really important point with me about this that really connected, and that's what I want to share with you. So, in 2012, uh, when I was, oh, I don't know, maybe 27 or something like that, I was software engineering for a smaller company, and I was working with a guy named Mark. And Mark and I were living together. Our clients paid for our rent, so we pooled our rent and just paid for an apartment together in Australia, which sounds a little more exotic than maybe it all was. At the time, I think I was making about $130,000 or something like that. And I asked Mark, about what he was doing prior to our company. And he said, well, for the last year before working here, I wasn't working at all. I was like, not working at all? What do you mean? He said, well, I just took a year off of work. I was like, whoa, what do you mean you just took a year off of work? Like, how do you afford that? He's like, oh, it's not as expensive as you think it's going to be at all. I think at the time in like 2010 when he took his year off, I want to say he said that he did that with like $30 or $40,000 or something like that. Um, which I guess when you do the math, right, $30 or $40,000 is what you'd have left over after paying taxes on maybe like a $55,000 income or something. And so it's kind of like just giving yourself a $55,000 income to live for a year. So it's not as expensive as he was thinking it would be. And also, I was like, whoa, dude, like, didn't this wreck your career? Like, what about your resume? Like, you're out of practice. Do you even remember how to do what you've learned after a year? And he said, he was like, no, dude, no. He, that's the beauty. He was like, you are where you are in life because you are an ambitious, intelligent person, and that won't change in a year. The technology will barely change in a year, but to the little degree it does, you've always been someone who's going to learn that, and you still will be. And so this resonated with me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was like fantasizing about it constantly, like, what would I do with a year off where every day you can just do whatever you want? I just started imagining what I could do. Maybe I'd come out to Sherwood National Forest. It's a bit windy. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's gonna screw up the audio at all. But and so I couldn't stop thinking about it. And on May 29th of 2014, I remember the date for some reason, I quit my job for the first time, and it was magical. I will never forget what it was like to just walk out of my apartment that next morning with no obligations in the world And I set my skateboard down in front of me and just skateboarded out into downtown Chicago, which is where I lived at that time. And I just went to a coffee shop that I wanted to go to, stopped by the beach where I wanted to be. I could do anything, and just started planning a trip to Vegas. Um, there was just no wrong answers. And again, at that time, I wasn't any kind of millionaire. I certainly wasn't making $500,000 like I did last year at AWS. I had about $120,000 in my bank account, and I said, Self, you are going to spend all of this money if that's what you want to do. You're not going to stress yourself about trying to make it last. Just enjoy life. And I ended up not taking a year off work, but actually 2.5 years. And gosh, I did so much that was important to me. I mean, I can honestly say that all of my bucket list items were checked off in life by the time I was 30, uh, which is bizarre. I don't think most people get that experience. But I think the reason we don't get that experience is because we're all sucked into this trap where we want to either, we just want to make as much money as we can. If the number becomes 100,000 a year, then we want it to be 150, and when it becomes 150, we want it to be 200,000, and when it becomes $1 million a year you're making, you want it to be 10 million, and that is a trap. It's a bad one, actually, I think. Um, because you really can't be happy on the poverty line, but you can be all the way happy on a slightly above middle income, And with that first 2.5 years I took off, I thought it'd be cool. At that time, I was really into a video game called League of Legends, and these pro players would get paid to play the game. And I thought, well, what if I just paid myself, like just pay myself rent and groceries, and so I started playing like 10 hours a day, and I grinded to a rank in that video game, a competitive rank that's known as a silver rank. If any of you actually played that game, you know that that's not very impressive. But for me, it was. For me, it was important, and I felt so good about accomplishing it. I could never have done that while I was working 40 to 50 hours a week, consulting like I was at the time. I wrote a book. I wrote a small book with a friend of mine. We got it published on Amazon.com. I got some local bookstores to sell that book. I mean, we made no money off that book, but it was a cool thing that I thought was cool. I made an Android app that I thought was cool. When you take a year off, here's what it can be like, is like you have an employer still, but the employer is yourself. And yourself is saying, I think this would be cool, let's try it. And it's not about making money, it's about feeling really free and good about yourself. Like really free. So, yeah, it's pretty special. So, after that, I went back to work in 2016, December 2016, and I went on to find out in my 30s, after spending all that time on these things that I cared about, um, I found out that, well, actually, let me say something more important first. I would always tell people when they said, "What are you doing, Lance? You're spending all this time on beach volleyball, which makes no money, and you're just like losing your retirement." Uh, and I would always say, like, yeah, but when I'm like 50 or 60 and I'm retiring, I won't be able to go back and like just press myself to apply myself to see what I can do with beach volleyball. I'll have bad hips. And I would say that all the time. I remember saying it all the time, the hips thing. I would just say it off the cuff. Well, as it would turn out, when I would return to work and in my 30s, I found out that I actually have a frickin' congenital disorder in my hips. I'm gonna need hip replacements in my early 40s here coming up. Even as I'm walking now, I'm just in a little bit of pain, which isn't the end of the world, really. I still got a good life, but uh, man, was I right or what? I mean, if I had just saved the money and thought I'll focus on this at some later point, it was never gonna happen. When you're young, your body and mind are firing on all cylinders, and it might not always feel like that, and you might not always know it, but that's what's happening, and you want to take advantage of that. Imagine if you were, imagine for a second if you were Benjamin Button. born in this old body, and you build up your retirement while you're like working at a desk with this fragile, arthritic old body. And then as your body becomes more and more vital and spry and you start growing muscles and your joints become supple, that's the same time you've built up this retirement and you take off work and go do all these things you enjoy. Wouldn't that feel like the right way to do it? It sure sounds good to me. If somebody said to you, in that case, you're doing it all wrong. You should be out exploring the world while your body hurts, and trying some really extreme sports and applying yourself in really radical ways when your body hurts. You'd say, no, that's backwards. But that's what some of us somehow think we're going to do. We're going to work, and we let our life slip away without quite realizing we're doing it. And all of a sudden, you're maybe 35, maybe 45, maybe 55, and you have a little more money than you really need. And it's too late to go back. It's too late. And so I am not somebody who's saying, it happened to me, so don't let it happen to you. I'm one of the few fortunate ones who got some good advice. And instead I'm saying, I avoided the bad story, and I want you to avoid it too. I want to share this. It's so special. Some people do, there's a lot of unfortunate people in the world who just don't have they don't get the education opportunities that I had, or whatever it is. But if you do have a halfway decent career that's kind of going for yourself, you probably are saving for a little more than you need. A lot of the people that I've met in my career or similar careers who retire often are pretty honest with me that they aren't spending as much in retirement as they thought. They have more money than they really need, and they didn't realize that. I remember when I was like 12, I thought like a 1975 red Corvette was the coolest car in the world. And one of my mom's friends just showed up with one and parked it right in front of our house. And I ran outside. I was like, whoa, what a cool car. The guy's name was Wayne. I'm like, whoa, Wayne, this is wild. And I remember asking him, like, how fun is it driving around in this? Like, do you just love it every day? Do you just enjoy it? And he said, no. He's like, life is good when you're old, but you don't appreciate things like this as much. He says, honestly, at my age, the car's neat, but it's not quite the same. So obviously not everyone is going to have the same sort of experience in age as Wayne was having, but a lot do. And when you get older, not that I've been 60 yet, but I have gone from 20 to about 40 now, and I can feel it. You slow down a bit. The things that you enjoy are different. You definitely want to be out there doing whatever you want with your life and your vitality and your youth, and not just losing yourself like a slave to this idea that the numbers need to be bigger and the status needs to be higher or something like that. So one of the most beautiful things that happened in my life as I went through these processes, I quit my job again, by the way, in 2021. I took 10 months off at that time, and in that 10 months, I completed 3 different sailing certificates that I always wanted to complete, that was important to me. During this break, like I said, I just quit AWS, so now I've been off for like 9 months, and during this break, I have graduated into a more advanced race driving bracket. So I'm focusing on race car driving. That's actually why I'm in England right now. I'm going to check out Goodwood Revival, which is kind of a cool racing event. And there's all these things that I'm doing with my life. And the point that I'm trying to get to is that it's not that expensive, really, to just treat life like a ball of clay. And the same way you view your hobbies as something you can invest in and then take a break from and come back to later. Once you're making enough money that you're no longer just trying to subsist, you're not just making $20,000 a year to try to make ends meet. Once you're making enough money that you're comfortable in life, treat your career like a hobby. It's something that you are hopefully enjoying. And if you're not, you can just switch to a different company, depending on how attached you are to familial relations. You might be able to move states, move countries, do what you want. Like I said, this life is like a ball of clay. You can shape in one way, shape into another. This is how I've always looked at it, and it's really beautiful. So don't forget, you're gonna die. Life is short and sweet. Do anything you want with it, and don't get stuck into the trap. I just realized that I've been walking for a while, and I think I might be lost. So that's it for me today. I'm gonna go find my way out of here, and yeah, take care, guys.